before time and space existed. The ruler of existence created 5 entities to become his proxies, the agents of his power. The first entity was Ifrit. The power over fire was given to him. The second entity was Kidir. The power over water was placed at his hands. The third entity was Jibril. The power over light was bestowed upon him. The fourth entity was Adam. The power over dust was mandated within his sovereignty. The fifth entity was Eva. The power over wind was planted into his existence. The 5 of them were the lights of Muhammad. The governor of realms then expressed his will. He ordered them to create a new world, different from spiritual realm they now belong to. By the power given by the peerless Creator, the 5 of them worked together, utilizing the knowledge and power that had been bestowed upon them. Through various explosions and clash of powers and energy, cosmos came to existence, the universe we all came to know. The creator of all things beneficial was satisfied by the exercise of the power of creation shown by the lights of Muhammad. The perfectly wise then expressed a warning. They were allowed to continue their exercise of the power of creation, but he forbade them to experiment with spirits, the essence of their very existence within spiritual realm. The lights of Muhammad acknowledged and accepted the orders. Not long after, among the 5 came an idea that the cosmos, which kept expanding, was far too big for the 5 of them. It was such a waste if they were the only ones who could appreciate it. They decided to continue the exertion of the power of creation given by the Magnificent by creating a beginning and an end, something called life within it. They experimented, trying to find the limitations from the power bestowed upon them, but they failed to recognize it. During the ecstasy and joy of creating, suddenly the prohibition from the highest authority came to their minds. Why would the inspirer of faith prohibit them from using spirits? As rapid developments and changes occurred to the creatures they created in the cosmos, their curiosity became unbearable. 4 of the brothers finally could not hold themselves from finding out why. They took a small chunk of spirit, the essence of their existence, and merged it with the creatures they created. Jibril refused to participate in their experiments since he regarded the words from the highest authority above all else. The 4 brothers assumed Jibril's refusal was because he had no more power or knowledge that could be beneficial to their new endeavors. After repeated trying, the 4 were ecstatic to learn that the combination of 2 distinctive matters from the 2 different worlds created something new. Ifrit, Kidir, Adam and Eve continued the process of creation with many other experimentations using their own spirit as one of the ingredients. The all-knowing, of course, learned of this transgression. Jibril asked him, Why would the all-seeing choose to let the four ignore his warning? The greatest will said he wanted to create leaders or Khalifa in the cosmos. Jibril asked again, why would the perfectly wise wanted to fill the cosmos with creatures created from the contradictions and dualities? Wouldn't they only hurt and destroy each other? The bestower of honor said the answer to that question was for Jibril to find out for himself. When the experiment done by Ifrit, Khidir, Adam and Eve almost reached completion to create a creature identical to their characteristics, suddenly the highest summoned all of them to congregate, including Jibril. The encounter of existence ordered the lights of Muhammad, which actually created as equal, to prostrate before Adam, the fourth brother. They all prostrated as commanded by the Creator of all power, except Ifrit. When asked why he would not obey an order from the clement, Ifrit answered, because he was nobler than Adam, since he was created from fire while Adam was from dust. Because of his answer, Ifrit was banished from spiritual realm to descend to physical realm. Ifrit disobeyed the Creator, thus he was given the chance to prove if he was truly nobler than his brothers by living in physical realm. After testing Ifrit, the greatest continued testing the lights of Muhammad by tempting them with even greater power than what they currently possessed. As it turned out, Adam and Eve took the bait and also disobeyed the order from the All-Knowing. Thus, they were both also expelled from spiritual realm. Adam and Eve were given chance to expand their knowledge and power by experiencing life in physical realm. The two brothers who remained discussed the recent developments and decided that one of them must descend to physical realm in order to assist their disgraced brothers. Khidir volunteered to fill the role, while Jibril stayed to ensure the line connecting physical realm and spiritual realm could be preserved. The decision ensured Jibril a communication with Khidir so that clues and wills of the giver of directions from spiritual realm could be received by those within the physical world. Different from their time in spiritual realm, in physical realm, they did not exist just as spirits, but rather covered with physical bodies of one of the creatures they had experimented on. There were so many urges caused by their new physical bodies that they had never experienced before. Aside from the newfound sensations, there were some animosity and blame among them in regards to their banishment from spiritual realm. What they did not realize at that time was that they had become much more than spirits and/or physical bodies. There were 7 layers of existence within them, namely Holy Spirit, spiritual heart or conscience, nafsu, feelings, minds, thoughts, and physical body, completely different from their time in spiritual realm. Regardless, the 4 tried to live out their punishment as well as they could, hoping that one day the Most Forgiving would allow them to return to spiritual realm. After some time, the Preserver of Balance ordered them to multiply and fill physical realm with their offspring. At the beginning, the order was not a problem. Slowly but sure, they managed to teach their offspring how to survive in such a harsh world. The lights of Muhammad never hesitated to share their power over elements to their children. Until one day, they realized they missed something during their experiments days fuzzing spirits with physical bodies, namely the existence of nafsu that corrupted their offspring's actions. Their children, a creature they called human being, had tendencies to be controlled by their physical body's urge rather than their spirits. And then after their bodies died and rot, their spirits were trapped within physical realm, unable to return to spiritual realm. Human beings who had died were stuck between two worlds. They did not really exist in the physical world, since they had no physical bodies, but they definitely were not able to cross into spiritual realm. As time passed, humans, both alive and dead, become more and more difficult to control since their number grew substantially. The lights of Muhammad, who were experienced in creating the cosmos and everything within, turn out to be having difficulties controlling their own offspring's animalistic tendencies. Each light of Muhammad, with their own preferred methods, responded to the challenge, modified space and time within physical realm, creating pockets of dimension to serve as temporary repository for the trapped spirits. Elysium, Tartarus, Asphodel Fields, Valhalla, Hell, Nilfel, Sheol, Olam Haba, Paradise, Limbo, Jannah, Jahannam, Heaven, Hell, as well as all kinds of afterlife as a reward or punishment or in between, were created by the lights of Muhammad in their efforts to maintain order among the spirits trapped in physical realm. However, they realized that this was only temporary solutions that did not completely solve the problems. Unlike the lights of Muhammad, human beings simply did not have the capacity to see with clarity. The scope of power belonged to the Creator in everything, including the existence of the real spiritual realm. Therefore, those pockets of dimension within physical realm, or could also be called the nether realm, purposefully created with a little difference from physical realm, always ended up mistakenly acknowledged as the real spiritual realm. The lights of Muhammad begged the all-powerful for some clues in solving the ever-growing problems. Through Jibril, the preserver of all gave out the first clue, that their offspring must be introduced to and learn about Creator. The lights of Muhammad devised various ways to teach the humans about the highest authority. Ifrit showed the fury of fire that protected humans from the harsh environment, as well as capable to destroy humans themselves in order to introduce them to the power of the giver of life and the taker of life. Khidir showed the source of life and ever-preserving characteristic of water that they drank to teach them the wisdom of the preserver of all. Adam showed them the nobility of earth and rocks that they lived on in introducing the majesty of the most beneficent. Eve taught them the concept of softness and hardness of the air that they breathe to introduce the justice of the manifest one and also the hidden one. The efforts to introduce human being to Creator took millenniums. Because of the situation that led them to be banished from the spiritual realm, the lights of Muhammad preferred to work individually. At the beginning of each cycle of introduction to the Creator that they did with their own preferred methods, humans became malleable and easier to control since they saw the lights of Muhammad's capability with their own eyes. However, as time passed and humans were left to try their best, they tended to return to the way of chaos and destruction. Some of them even began to worship the lights of Muhammad rather than the highest authority himself. To circumvent the misguided worships, they started to use proxies, specifically chosen human to act as emissaries in teaching the knowledge. Those humans were what we mostly recognize nowadays as prophets or messengers or saints. Repeatedly, the lights of Muhammad were left with no choice but to press the reset button, completely destroying civilizations that they considered to misalign in order to start the processes from scratch. When they found one method was ineffective, they would modify the teaching and or try different methods altogether. That was the reason why there were so many religions and beliefs in the span of history. Some were still alive and being practiced, while the others were forgotten by time. Religion of Islam, which was given through Prophet Muhammad, which developed into so many versions, was originally a product of collaboration between Khidir and Jibril. Religion of Christianity, Catholics, and all kinds of permutations who place Christ and love at the highest regard was originally a product of collaboration between Eve and Jibril. Religion of Hinduism and most of Javanese traditions, as well as many other traditions which taught nobility and honor to humans through heroic stories, were originally products of collaborations between Adam and Jibril. Confucianism, Buddhism, and even atheism, which taught virtues to humans without having to explicitly worship or acknowledging the existence of the Creator, was originally a product of collaboration between Ifrit and Jibril. In all of those teaching of goodness, Jibril was only there as a liaison, providing the lights of Muhammad stationed in physical realm, a mean of communication with the Almighty. Having attempted so many different approaches and virtually unlimited effort, the lights of Muhammad never once managed to succeed in returning their offspring spirits back into spiritual realm. In the end, they gathered together, relieved themselves out of the responsibility, and vanished from the physical as well as the nether realm. Human beings, their offspring, were left alone to fend for themselves. They focused their mind to one purpose only, prostrating before the owner of greatness and nobility, surrendered themselves and admitted that they were not capable in solving the challenges. They prostrated for almost 1,000 years before the source of lights gave them his clues. In order for humans to control the tendencies within themselves, namely nafsu, and to be able to truly become the leader of cosmos, they needed help from emissaries of spiritual realm, the Muqarrabin angels. The closest angels were spirits made from Jibril's essence, or in a way his offspring, not unlike how humans were the offspring of the other four of Muhammad. The news shocked Ifrit, Khidir, Adam and Eve, for they just realized that the knowledge they had been searching all this time, the knowledge about spirits, were given to Jibril by the highest authority. But before the closest angels descend, there were many requirements which had to be fulfilled by the four lights of Muhammad in physical realm. At last, the lights of Muhammad finally returned to the stage, and this time they worked together as one, just like the very first time when they created the cosmos. To start preparing for the execution of the one in existence order, they picked Java Island as their base camp. Their laboratory, a place currently known as part of a country called Indonesia. Why in Java Island? Firstly, Java was picked because the place was where they gathered together to prostrate before the highest majesty just recently. Secondly, during the time of their inactivity of the world stage, while they were focusing their whole attentions toward the Everlasting One, by His will, Java Island had become a place where existed the perfect mixture of religions and beliefs, belonged to the lights of Muhammad during their time working individually, trying to best each other. In Java Island, the lights of Muhammad were known as different allegory, namely sedulur papat kalimo pancar, a phrase which had been source of many different interpretations of Javanese wisdom. Sedulur papat, or the four brothers, referred to the four Muhammad whom at the time were in the physical world, while kalimo pancar, or the fifth in the middle, referred to the light, namely Jibril, who were created third out of the five and always had been living in spiritual realm. Thus, the first step they took was to harmonize those different teachings using the softest of approach, through love and understanding, like taking a fish from the pond without unsettling the water. This endeavor was executed mostly by whom locals known as the Wali Songo, the 9 custodians. The lights of Muhammad divided the plan into 3 main tasks. First, Ifrit and Khidir must reacquire all forms of magic they had shared with their offspring in the past, which mostly had been modified and corrupted, strayed so far from the initial purpose. This was the main reason why mysticism had been in decline for the past centuries, since the energy to perform all that miracles had been severed from the very source. Second, Adam and Eve must develop the knowledge and resources for human being without using any kind of magic. It must conform the real basic law of cosmos that they had established since the beginning, especially so as not to involve spirits as the source of energy or mean of modifications. This was the main reason why science and technology had developed so fast in the past centuries. Meanwhile, Jibril must prepare his offspring, the closest angels, so they could become the messenger of the Creator of all things, beneficial teaching, the knowledge of virtue, to be the guide for mankind to win and gain control of mankind's arch-nemesis, namely nafsu, that existed within their very existence. When the requirements were deemed sufficient, The next step was the spiritual judgment. The lights of Muhammad were ordered as one to process a single individual to reach the highest quality they could attain in order to smooth the interaction between the closest angels to a human being, alive or dead. This manual guidance served as prototype and would be used as standard operation procedure when the closest angels finally descend in the end. On this same note, human beings' absolute quality before the most exalted was being defined, categorized, and measured in the process. The standard was the purity of conscience, the sincerity of a human in facing the destiny placed upon them in this world, which reflected by their decisions and actions they took in this opera of life. Higher their absolute quality of individual before the one, more closest angels of the higher quality would be assigned to guide them. From the judgment, the lights of Muhammad classified the level of faith human had into 20 levels, with level 1 was the highest, while level 20 was the lowest. These levels decide how many and which quality the closest angels who would give them help from within. Of those 20, humans who were in level 1 through 17 would start their education mostly in physical realm while they were still alive. Meanwhile, level 18, level 19, and level 20 would be educated mostly in the nether realm because their sincerity and purity of conscience was so low compared to what the left of their lifetime in the physical world. They would begin their education only after they had died. In 1989, the closest angels Yasin descended. These angels had the ability to guide the lost spirits wandering physical realm, so they could stop influencing the living in their already challenging lives and be completely separated from them, untangling the messy relationship between the living and the dead. Because before ensuring the living to be completely separated from the dead, human beings would never be able to win against or gain control over their own tendencies. In 1999, the closest angels Noorani descended. These angels were tasked to continue the efforts started by Ifrit and Kidir in recollecting their power and knowledge considered unbeneficial and or corrupted with love and understanding, no coercion whatsoever. Noorani would then return those knowledge and power back to the lights of Muhammad. In executing their task, Noorani would collaborate with the Yasin. In 2005, the closest angels Luma descended. These angels had the ability and expertise in teaching humans to understand the reason and purpose behind each and every trial of life, so that humans became aware and always tried their best in facing them, increasing their chance to actually pass them with high enough score. The passing from trials of life was the main asset for the humans in order to maintain sincerity and purity of conscience only because of the Creator, which in turn would enable them to become a true virtuous creature. That was actually the true purpose humans were created, to become a true leader of cosmos. In 2016, the closest angels Shariat descended. These angels had the energy and skills to shift humans from the tendency of doing good or bad things as relatively regarded among humans, to the tendency of doing the right thing before the most honorable. In performing their task, Shariat unified their efforts with Lumah. All religions, as well as any knowledge humans had, were originated from the highest authority, through the lights of Muhammad as his proxies. And now, those lights of Muhammad would ensure all that knowledge unified into religion of Allah. Religion of Allah is all kinds of knowledge which in the end would teach human how to surrender to the Creator properly, which could only be done when the humans were able to conquer their own nafsu inside of them, or, in other words, when their heart or conscience were under the leadership of FITRAH, the Holy Spirit, the core of their existence. Physically speaking, the religion of Allah would use Islam as the main pillars, since the closest angels mostly were taught Islam and spiritual realm, but the Islam that under the leadership of FITRAH, not Islam being controlled by nafsu. This era was what actually had been referred as the rise and glory of Islam, when Islam would truly become the blessing for all realism. Allah was and would always be the creator of all plans, as noted within An-Nasr. When the victory of Allah has come and conquest, and you see the people entering into the religion of Allah in multitudes, then exalt Him with praise of your Lord and ask forgiveness of Him. Indeed, He is ever accepting of repentance.